I do want to first start with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL or EIDL loan. There have been some slight changes to it. In addition, there is, I did do an extensive webinar on this last week with the Chamber. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one. I want to get to the other programs that are available. So the EIDL loan, so this is basically funding to help your business meet the financial responsibilities that you could have met if it weren't for the disaster. So it's basically a working capital loan to pay fixed debts. It can be used for payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that you could have met. They're not intended to replace lost sales or profits or for expansion. So it's not for purchasing real estate, buying new equipment, upgrading your facility. It's mainly to help weather this storm that we're right in the middle of now. So this program, you can apply for these loans until December 18th of this year, and a business is able to qualify for up to $2 million. The interest rates are fixed. It's 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits, and the terms are up to 30 years, and payments are deferred for the first year. So what is new with this is that in the application, well, let me go back 1 second. When this was first available a couple weeks ago, you had to create a login and password, and you could start the application, and you had to upload documents. I mean, it worked for a little bit, and then it just crashed. And then, as most people know, then there was this drag and drop website where you had to download forms, fill them in, scan them back in, and then drag and drop them into the application portal. Now there's a new portal, and this one is the permanent solution. So you don't need to add any documents to it. It's fairly simple and it's fast. But within that application for the EIDL loan is a checkbox, and that checkbox makes you eligible for the $10,000 advance. Now, what this advance is for, it's an emergency cash influx into your business. So theoretically, you should receive it in a few days. I don't know if it's working that quick right now, but you should receive it in a few days, and you can use it for to meet payroll, to pay some bills that are due, or pay the rent for your building, whatever. It's just a quick influx of cash, and it is a grant, so it does not need to be repaid. And it doesn't need to be repaid whether you or not you were, if you were approved for the loan, it doesn't need to be repaid. If you're declined for the loan, it doesn't need to be repaid. For those of you who applied in a previous application, the two previous application portals that I've talked about already, in order to be considered for this advance of $10,000, you need to reapply. So that's the unfortunate news. The good news is it is a much faster and easier process than it has been in the recent past. So what we look at for the EIDL is we're going to look at your credit history. I don't know if there's a minimum number that we accept for credit. I have a feeling, and there's a gut feeling that it's around 600 or lower. You would be declined, but you might as well apply because you get that $10,000 grant regardless. We look at your ability to repay. And like I said, the term is it's a fixed low interest rate over a long period of time. So hopefully the payments would not be too big to be able to repay. For the eligibility, it says that you need to be physically located in the disaster area. Well, the entire state of Ohio, and in fact, the entire U.S. is a declared disaster area. So everybody is located in the area, in the disaster area. So these, the loans under $25,000 require zero collateral. The loans over $25,000 do require collateral, although we cannot decline your application because of a lack of collateral, but we do require you to pledge what is available. And we do prefer real estate if possible. So these are direct loans from the U.S. government. The banks are not involved with this. So you would go to the link there, the COVID-19 relief.sba.gov, and that will take you directly to the application to begin filling it out. There's no cost to apply for this, and there's no obligation to take it. So for those of you who are worried about, well, if I apply for this, is this going to kick me out of other programs? Well, that is not true because you have no obligation. You can apply for it, and if they come back to you and say, yeah, you're approved for a $100,000 loan, you just don't sign the paperwork or follow through with it if it's going to kick you out of another program. Or if there's another program that works better for you, then you can do the other program instead. If you have an existing disaster loan, which many of you might from the Memorial Day tornadoes, you are able to apply for this loan as well. It's just that the loans can't be consolidated. If you need more funding, and by the way, the SBA is the one who determines how much you are approved for the loan. But if they come back to you with a number and you need more, they probably just ask for additional documentation to show that. If you've been denied for a loan request, you do have 6 months to provide new information to be reconsidered. So who is not eligible? Agricultural enterprises, you have religious organizations, charitable organizations, gambling concerns, that's who have get a third or more of their annual gross revenue from legal gambling. Casinos, real estate developers are not eligible. As far as nonprofits go, it has to be a non-governmental agency or entity, and you need the effective ruling letter from the IRS and evidence from the state of Ohio that you are a non-revenue producing organization. For nonprofits in the application, it's going to ask for who the owner is. The owner for a nonprofit is anyone who is an authorized representative of the agency. So that can differ from organization to organization. So it could be the executive director, it could be the board president, or whoever. It's just somebody in your organization that is an authorized representative. So to apply, you go to the link there, and then there's also a 1-800 number you can call with questions and an email address that you could also ask questions. My strong suggestion is to avoid these two forms of communication. At the very end of this presentation, you will see a slide with my name, phone number, email, along with several of my coworkers in Cincinnati and Columbus, and call one of us first. Granted, we're busy, our phones are ringing off the hook, emails coming in all the time, but we will get back to you, and you won't be sitting on hold for 2 to 3 hours and possibly be disconnected at the end of that time with talking to nobody. And plus, we know most of the answers or can guide you to where to find those answers. So I just want to take a minute just to kind of give a shout out to our resource partners who can help pull together the financials or the loan application for you. And this is at no cost to you for SBD or Small Business Development Center, SCORE, Women Business Centers, and so on. To find the nearest office, you want to go to the link below, and it'll ask you which partner you're looking for, and you can select one or all of them. So just a little more information about the $10,000 advance. This is an advance, and it is a grant, so it's not to be paid back, and it should be available to you within 3 days of a successful application submission. So I want to move on now to the Paycheck Protection Program. So this program is basically an incentive for small businesses to keep workers on the payroll. If you go by our guidelines and use the loans for the items that we find acceptable and eligible, this entire loan will be forgivable. And the program is available through June 30th of this year. So who can apply? That is for small businesses under 500 employees. This does include sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed people. Private nonprofits are eligible as well. If you are a franchisee in the hotel food industry and you have several locations, as long as you don't employ more than 500 employees at a store, that each location is eligible to submit an application. So for this program, you would need to apply through an existing 7A lender. I do have a list. I will supply that to Jessica at the end of this. She can distribute that out to the group. And it's a list of existing 7A lenders by county throughout the Columbus district, which is 60 counties. Other regulated lenders who have the federal insurance, they can make the loans as well. They just need to go through a process to get enrolled in the program. Either way, you want to reach out to your lender to let them know that you're interested in this program. They should have an application for you. Again, this is new information for them, so they're kind of weeding through it, trying to figure out exactly how they work and what is and is not eligible. But they should be able to help walk you through that. And applications can begin to be submitted beginning tomorrow. So for this program as well, again, it's fully forgiven. If you use it on the items listed there, payments are deferred for 6 months. It's a 2-year maturity of the part that is not forgiven, and the interest rate is 0.5%. And these loans are up to $10 million. So basically, it's based on the small business maintaining their employees or quickly rehiring them. And you have to maintain them at their current salary levels. If you do not bring everybody back, or if the salary wages are decreased, then the amount of forgiveness will also be reduced. So before moving on, a couple other things I want to mention about this program. If you apply for this program and the economic injury disaster loan, which you are allowed to do, and you receive that $10,000 advance, that grant I spoke about earlier, that will be taken off the amount given to you for the Paycheck Protection Program. It'll just come right off the top because you had already received that grant, and it is forgivable as well. So that's why they do that. And for any employees that make over $100,000, anything above $100,000 is not cannot be paid out of this, or will not be forgiven out of this program. So the SBA has also come up with the Debt Relief Program. And this program is essentially if you have a current 7A loan with the SBA, or if you apply for and receive a 7A loan through the SBA prior to September 27th of this year, the SBA will pay the principal and interest for 6 months on that loan. Again, you would go through your bank to apply for this program, or to ask them, if you currently have a 7A loan, to ask them about this program. And then the last program that we have is the Express Bridge Loan Program. So basically, this program allows a business to access up to $25,000 with less paperwork. So you would apply for this program after you apply for the EIDL loan. Then you would pay off this loan once you receive the EIDL monies. So it's an additional influx of cash, because $10,000 is great and it's a grant. You don't have to worry about repaying it, but a lot of companies need more than that. So this just allows you an additional $25,000. It does need to be paid back, but you would just pay it back with the EIDL loan. So you can find information on all of these programs at the link at the top of the page there. And then you click on the program you're interested in and it'll break it down for you, and there'll be links within there to take you to the application or to find somebody who could help you. To find a resource partner, again, I've replicated the link there. And disaster customer service, there's their phone number and email. But again, please, please, please call somebody on this screen, email one of us first before you reach out to the disaster customer service. They are getting roughly 20 to 30,000 emails and applications a day. So they are extremely busy. And then that 1-800 number's got that kind of glitch where you could be on hold 2 to 3 hours and then just ends up disconnecting you without even giving you the opportunity to talk to somebody. So I know I went through that fairly quick, but I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions because I know people have specific questions on these programs. So I don't know if you've been monitoring the chat, Jessica, but I can take questions now.
Yeah, we do pretty much starting right away. It seems like the first question that was asked, you eventually answered it. And then the next one is, this was near the beginning, so it's just, is there a personal guarantee for what you're presenting today? Which I think you kind of answered in those specific programs.
Yeah, it was in the, for the EIDL, I am pretty sure that they are not looking for any personal guarantees for that loan. If you maybe do not have enough business collateral, they may be looking for personal guarantees. But for the Paycheck Protection Program, I did fail to mention there are no personal guarantees with that one. There's no collateral with that, and there's no fees for that program.
Okay, great. Next question, I think you answered this, that the EIDL, whether it's a loan or a grant, it is a loan, correct?
Yeah, the EIDL is a loan.
Okay.
the $10,000 advance is a grant.
Okay. You also spoke about this. So if somebody applied for the economic injury disaster loan previously on the streamlined application, do we need to reapply for the $10,000 advance? Which I know you mentioned if you were on the quote unquote old way, you would have to reapply, but I guess, do you know like the cutoff date of when?
Yeah, if you applied on the new streamlined one, as long as you clicked the little checkbox for the 10,000 advance, then you're fine. If you did not, I would suggest that you go back in and click that, because you're going to receive that 10,000 whether you're approved or declined for the application.
Okay. Next question, what's the time frame on application process once we have submitted the application? Which you did mention they do have a goal to.
Yeah, so the 10,000 advance, you should get that. It says within 3 days. It could be a little bit longer than that at this point, but that is that quick. But the EIDL loan itself, you should hear something within 2 to 3 weeks. The Payroll Protection Program, we haven't started receiving what the applications are technically not even available right now or eligible to be submitted. So we really don't have a timeline at this point. But we're hoping it goes a little bit quicker, because we'll have a number of banks involved as well. So they should be able to do some processing pretty quick on those.
Back to someone just wanted to ask a question about the box on the $10,000 advance. Is there a way to know whether they've checked that box? Is there a way you can kind of check the status of your application and see what you submitted, or should they just
the only way you would be able to do that, unfortunately, is by calling the 1-800 number or sending an email. Field staff, such as you can see on the slide there, we do not have access to that system at all. So we cannot check on status or see what you filled out or anything like that. If you're in question, I would resubmit and then send an email referencing both application numbers and just kind of explain, hey, I filled out this application first, couldn't remember if I did the checkbox, but here, this second application, I know I did, just to kind of give them a heads up. It might make it a little bit easier for them.
Okay. Next question, if you take out a PPPL, can you use the EIDL or the economic injury disaster loan to cover payroll for portions of payroll not covered by the PPP? Example, greater than the $100,000 payroll outside the 8-week period.
That is a great question. I haven't heard that question yet, so I'll make a note of it, and I will find out that answer and let you know, Jessica, and then you could send that out.
Yeah, and for those of you that have questions, and if for some reason we don't get to it, I can download the sort of chat log and also supply that to Alex. So we will have a written recording of your question. And moving on, do farmers qualify for PPPL? You mentioned enterprise. What's the difference between an individual farmer and an enterprise?
Well, when it comes to the individual farmer, you have to look at what your gross revenues mainly come from. If it's 75% or more farm related, which is growing something that is living, so that's plants or animals, then you're considered a farm and you would be ineligible. But I would reach out to the USDA, and I think that they have some programs at this time as well to help with people in that situation. If people need contacts, feel free to reach out to me. I have plenty of contacts at the USDA who can help you.
Okay, terrific. So businesses, we're setting up the question here. Businesses and individuals that may reach out for a variety of programs available through the SBA and traditional lenders are going to take hits to their credit scores. Is that a factor the SBA is considering when reviewing applications?
I don't believe that will be the case with these programs. It does seem like I've heard, it's probably been a couple weeks since I've heard this little bit, and I can't remember where I heard it, but that these are actually not going to be hitting your credit, so that it's not affecting your credit score to have these checks.
Okay. Someone asked, and this kind of goes back to a question I asked you, Alex, last week, I believe. This was someone who submitted an application, and how will they be contacted from the SBA? I think there's a little bit of fear that with so many vulnerable businesses, perhaps scammers may be trying to pretend to be with the SBA or federal government. And so do you know how can they expect to be contacted that would be the appropriate, they know it's coming from the actual SBA?
Well, this is one thing I didn't like that changed. I liked having that login in the very first instance of the application portal. You had an opportunity to create a username and password, and there was a message center in there, and that's how they were to contact you. That way you knew it was legitimate. Unfortunately, that is not available now. And so I'm assuming the contact is going to be coming via email, possibly phone, but I would imagine it'd be email first. If you have a question on whether something is legitimate, reach out to somebody on my team there, and we can let you know if this is legitimate or not, because there will be many predatory lenders. I've seen commercials in the past where somebody was called themselves the Small Business Association, and they were saying that they had SBA loans. Well, they could, because their acronym is SBA, but it was not the Small Business Administration. So people are out there to confuse you. Especially if you get a phone call and they're asking for PII, or personally identifiable information, social security number, EIN number, don't give it to them. Reach out to one of us first, get their name and number, reach out to one of us first, we'll check to make sure it's legitimate, and then move on from there.
Okay, that's certainly good advice. Someone asked, why did the repayment terms get changed from 10 years at 4%?
Which program? I'm not familiar with the 10 years at 4%.
If you ask that question, will you kind of type in clarification into the chat box? But until then, I'll move on to another one. We're talking about construction trades. Many of our people are 1099 individuals. Can these count towards payroll? They do jobs for other subcontractors besides me. I'm looking to pay the guys to help support them, during this time.
That is something, that question gets asked a lot, and we are trying to find out clarification on that, because independent contractors are also eligible. So we're not really sure how that will all work out and what the best approach is. But once we find that out, we have submitted a huge list of questions that we're getting. And my boss said that he is looking to get those answers himself personally. So hopefully we'll get those answers within the next couple of days.
Okay. And along those lines, Alex, as you get those, is there a good, the Chamber, we have a great resource page, but we certainly don't always capture everything. So is there a good sort of landing page when that's kind of up to the minute changes or updates or clarification?
I wish there was. Just that makes all the sense in the world, but sometimes government doesn't work on common sense. We try to come up with a frequently asked question sheet. The SBA does as a whole, but it only comes out occasionally, and sometimes we're allowed to share it and sometimes we're not allowed to share it. And it doesn't even fulfill all the questions that we have. So it's, in my mind, it's pretty useless. But our district office tries to maintain a list of something like that, or we've been trying to until they changed everything on us. So we may end up doing that again. And if we do, that we'll definitely let partners know about that.
Yeah, that would be terrific. We will just work harder in the meantime, and you'll probably get more emails from me as I ask questions on behalf of our members. Okay, so we got a clarification. We got a clarification on an earlier question. So the original bill on the PPPL was 10 years at 4%. And then the guidance came out and it was changed to 0.5, I think maybe not 0.5%, but 5% for 2 years, which quadruples the monthly payment.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, if that is the case, I'm not sure why it was changed. Because the only thing I've ever heard was the 0.5%, 0.5% for 2 years. I think the possibly the reasoning is they want, there's a specific costs that they want that program to go to, and if you follow that, then the whole loan is going to be forgiven. So it's probably to try and incentivize the borrower to utilize it for those specific items that the government is wanting to be covered. Because then if you don't do it and you spend it on something else that is not in that approved list, then they'll, that's not an incentive to do that, if that makes sense.
Okay. Scroll here. I'm jumping around a little bit. Okay. Are payroll taxes such as FICA and or federal withholdings supposed to be subtracted from the wages in the PPPL loan calculation?
I have heard something like that, but that's another question that was asked and that we are looking for clarification on, because I have heard that should be subtracted out. But I'll be sure to get an answer.
Okay, terrific. Paycheck Protection is through local banks and credit unions. Do they determine the process for applying, or is it sort of a uniform process?
It should be a uniform process, and it should be fairly simple to do it. But I'm pretty sure that we're kind of requiring these banks, because we are doing 100% guarantee to the bank. So they're basically just facilitating this application for us. And they really don't have much skin in the game. So their incentive is to get this process quickly and easily for the businesses. So it should be a pretty uniform application process.
Okay. Back to sort of the old application for the EIDL and the current one. So someone applied for the EIDL prior to the new online app. Do we need to reapply with the new method, or is the prior application still valid? And if I'm understanding, if you want that $10,000 advance, you would need to reapply in the new method.
That's exactly true. But if you did apply before and you don't want that grant, which, I mean, that's fine if you don't, then you don't need to do anything. You should be contacted, fairly soon to hear about your application. And I do want to point out, I was told, I hope that this is in practice, but we were told by the disaster team that if they do reapply, that they still maintain their place in line and will not delay their the processing of their previous application.
Okay, it sounds like it's good. I mean, you may not be able to advise that, but it sounds like why not, reapply since it is a $10,000 grant.
Yeah.
Okay. If you take out a PPPL, are you able to take advantage of the business tax provisions, i.e. deferring 2020 employer match, FICA to pay 2021 to 2022?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not familiar with that program. I mean, it very well could be a federal program. I am not familiar with it, so I will. I'll look into that though, to see what I can find out about that.
Okay, then scroll back up here. Some of the other questions. On the PPP application that we have seen in the area that you fill in your average monthly payroll, it has a box titled number of jobs. Are they asking for the number of jobs pre-COVID-19 or current employees to date when application is submitted?
I think they're looking for pre-COVID-19. That way they know how many people are on your payroll and how many jobs that this is affecting.
Okay. Question on the PPL. If we certify that the loan is necessary to support ongoing operations, what exactly does that mean? On the one hand, the company may be in good shape financially, and they're not concerned currently about keeping the business afloat. But on the other hand, if new orders keep coming out, they may have to have some layoffs in the future.
That's a good question, and that's why these programs are have deadlines that are longer term. So the PPP, you can apply until June 30th, and for the economic injury loan, you can apply until December 18th. So it does give you time that, hey, I'm good right now, but if it's like this in a couple months, I'm not going to be good. These programs will still be around to be able to be tapped into.
Sure. If you co-own a business and provide 1099 consulting work as an individual, are you able to apply for PPP for the business and as an independent contractor?
My gut says no. But I can look into that. I mean, I can see both sides there. So I will find out I'll get some clarification on that. But gut instinct is no, because that'd be kind of like double dipping. But again, I'll clarify that.
Okay. Can you clarify or restate the payment of principal and interest on SBA loans for 6 months of an existing SA? Or 7A, not SA, yeah. I'm sorry, 7A.
Yes, if you have a current 7A loan with us, then the SBA under the Debt Relief Program will take care of the payments of principal and interest for 6 months. This also applies to new 7A loans that are taken out prior to September 27th. So if you have questions about that program, contact your bank. They should know about that program. And I'm not sure if there's an application or if it's something that the bank does internally with the SBA, but definitely talk to your bank about it.
Does the PPL cover payroll taxes? What portions of payroll are not covered by PPL aside from the 100,000 cap for an individual's salary?
Yeah, that's kind of like a previous question. I'll need to get clarification on
Okay,
exactly what it is. If they would release the, we have internal, and they're available to the public, I believe, but our standard operating procedures, and these are long documents that put down every single little rule and what is eligible or not eligible and so on. They're usually about 300 pages long, but if they would put that out, I could easily answer a lot of these questions just looking for these. But until that's available, I'll try to get clarification from the disaster team.
Okay, thank you. If you use the $10,000 grant money for mortgage and other monthly bills, what is the advantage of getting the PPL to pay employees instead of letting employees collect unemployment?
I think that the advantage would be that the $10,000 may not cover that first. The PPP would be for 8 weeks of pay for your employees. And it's kind of looking like to me that it would take as far as the government's concerned, instead of paying out unemployment to your workers, they would be basically being paid by you under this forgivable loan. So either way, it's the government's tab. It's just from one pot of money to the other. And I believe, I'm not positive because unemployment is a state program, but I believe that you only make a portion of your wages. So if you laid somebody off, they would only get, I don't know, 75% or something like that of their wages. But if you utilize the Paycheck Protection, they would get their full wages.
Okay. You may have mentioned this, but just in case we had some folks that maybe hopped on a little bit later to the call, for the PPL, will these be done online at a financial institution? Do they need to prepare PDFs that can be uploaded, or will be extracting information to enter directly on a website? So maybe just kind of quickly go over that again, since it's changed.
Yeah, so the PPP is through the bank. How they decide to gather that information, whether it's hard copies, electronic, downloading forms, that would be up to the bank. I would assume that they would make some kind of effort to do it electronically because that's how they have to submit it to the SBA. So I'd assume it would be electronic, but you would really have to talk to your banker about that.
And just a reminder to folks on the call, we do on the Chamber's website, we do have, these are Dayton Area Chamber lenders already listed on that coronavirus resource guide. But Alex, when you send me that list, we'll go ahead and cross-reference with what we have just to make sure if somebody new wasn't added or whatever, we may have missed one. So like I said, that's a great resource, so you can see who those lenders are.
Yeah, and I do want to mention about that list, because I've talked to a number of bankers who are either new to their bank or they're a community bank, that they've been calling me saying, are we a 7A lender? Are we approved already? And I would have somebody on my team look it up, and they say, yeah, they're already approved, but they haven't done any 7A loans at all. So they may still have a steep learning curve, even if they are an approved lender, but still reach out to them because I think a lot of lenders, especially the smaller ones, are really clamoring to take a help their clients and customers with the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Just sort of FYI. Another question here, if I qualify for the PPP and use it to maintain my staff for the next few months, but after the end of the loan period, we are not able to generate enough revenue to maintain the staff, will that person still qualify for forgiveness?
That's a good question. I haven't had that question. My initial gut, I will get clarification, but my initial gut is saying that if you covered it for the 8 weeks, that it should be forgivable. But let me clarify that because that's a really good question.
Okay. Scroll through a couple of other questions here. Kind of along those same lines, back to the PPP. In the event an employee resigns on their own prior to the June 30th deadline, how does that affect the forgiveness? If they were replaced with a new employee at a lower wage, or replaced with a contract labor person, how does that affect forgiveness? So I guess just in general, if someone resigns on their own prior to the 6/30 deadline, what does that look like in terms of the forgiveness?
That's another good question. Jeez, people come up with, it's interesting to see the questions that come up, and you can't think of all of them, I guess. I would have to get clarification on it, but I would assume if the employee left on their own, then it shouldn't affect the forgiveness part. But again, I don't want to say something that is not true, so I will get clarification on that as well.
This is a good crowd. They're asking good questions. We have good chamber members and some non-members too on the call. One just came in, and we might need some clarification from the person who asked this question. There's a Catholic school inquiring if they would be eligible. It doesn't clarify eligible to which program. The principal's been told 2 different answers, but can you provide sort of any guidance on for Catholic schools? Assuming we're talking 12, but
yeah. So I know for the economic injury, they would not be eligible. Now for the paycheck protection, I think that is being considered right now, and there has been no guidance given. So at this point, I think they're ineligible for the PPP, but there is some talk about having those organizations be eligible for the PPP. If I hear something or if they provide an answer to the field, I will let you know, Jessica, but I would say at this point they are not eligible.
Okay. Keep getting a lot, and I know maybe Alex, just afterwards, if you can follow up, of a lot of questions from various folks of saying, do you know the date in which the EIDL grant application changed the new application? So is there a way to say to businesses, if you applied before X, you should reapply? And I know you said the best way to tell is whether you checked that $10,000 box or not, but obviously in kind of the craziness, not everyone may noticed it or remembers that specifically.
Well, I recognized the new application this past Monday, so March 30th. So I would say if you applied before March 30th, then you should reapply, at least to get considered for the $10,000 grant.
So that's at least kind of a basic sort of guideline for some folks.
Yeah.
For the, oops, I'll go back up to this question. For the PPP self-employed, this person says he doesn't believe, he believes we can't apply until April 10th. Can self-employed include medical insurance premiums in the payroll request? If so, is that 2 times or 2 months?
So for the self-employed, now I have heard that, I forget what they said that sole proprietors and small businesses could apply beginning tomorrow, but independent contractors and self-employed would have to wait until April the 10th. So I know I've gotten some questions about, well, those can almost be interchangeable terms, depending on who you're talking to. And I even had a couple of accountants ask me that question of, well, they're kind of the same thing, so what do you do? And I've heard of some banks are just going to send in all applications beginning tomorrow. And if they're a independent contractor and we come back and say, no, they have to reapply next week, then the bank will just reapply them next week. But we are trying to get clear. That's another question that we did submit for clarification already, to see what is the difference, exactly what's the difference between the 3 terms.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. We are about end of time. I know I didn't get to every question, but I will send, as I did last time, send Alex sort of the chat log. So we'll have a record of that, especially ones that maybe need some further clarification. So I want to thank all of you for taking time to sit in on this call. I know it's confusing, and Alex has been gracious enough to give us some time to hopefully at least walk you through some of the questions and go over the basic requirements. So with that, Alex, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy days.
Well, you're very welcome, Jessica. I'm happy to do it. And I wish I had better answers for some of those questions, but I'll get clarifications for them.
Okay, terrific. And a reminder, DaytonChamber.org, the Coronavirus Resource Guide for Employers is, bookmark it. That's something you should be checking every day. We have a great dedicated team that's updating it multiple times, including with information about we just went over. And I'll be emailing you hopefully by the end of business today with the recording of this webinar and any other supplemental information from Alex. So thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.